Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. Welcome to the weekly show of What is School For? This interview is inspired by the one and only Seth Godin. What is school for? So on this show, I interview leading entrepreneurs, education professionals, parents, students, traditional and non-traditional students to come here to discuss, debate, and disrupt education. And today, speaking of which, we are talking about the ROI of college education. And join me live is Dan Manning, and I recently connected with him through LinkedIn, and we had a discovery call. I'm really inspired by what he's doing, and he and his team as young college grads, and they are making a difference. They are making impact. So really inspired by their journey and the story. So Dan is the founder at ChatWave Media, where he and his team, they create chatbots to generate sales and leads for different for businesses. And really excited for today's conversation. And we are going to reflect on his education journey and to what extent and in what aspect his college education has prepared and not prepared him for his success in life. And also for him starting his own company and joining others to be a part of a startup company. And what are some key lessons that he has learned so he can share with us, and we can share with other teachers and mostly parents join us live. And we are live on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on YouTube, on Periscope, on Twitch. And also, I figured out how to go live on my website. So you can also actually watch us live on my website, which is classroomwithoutwalls.ai/what is school for. So once you go there, you will see us live on my website as well. Really excited. And welcome to the show, Dan.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm definitely excited to get into the conversation with you.
Thank you for joining us, Dan, and thank you for being here, James. And so great to see you all. So I want to help everyone here to get to know you a little bit more. So on your Instagram, and you have this as your tagline, and I just love it. I thought it was really cool. And a healthy disrespect for the impossible. So cool. What do you mean by that? And what inspired you to develop that line?
Sure. Well, I'm not so sure it's totally original. I think I may have read it at some point. I'm not sure exactly where it's attributable to, but I think I read it at some point, and then I was going to type in a bio, and I thought, what really represents the way I feel about life? And I thought, a healthy disrespect for the impossible, because I think a lot of the best things that you can do and, the most impactful things that you do in the world, a lot of people are going to tell you, don't waste your time. That's impossible. But, those are the things that I think are worth really going after, because those are the things that are going to create the most impact when you are able to achieve them. And not only that, but I think they're going to make your life the best and the most interesting as it could possibly be.
Yeah, I mean, you have, and your team, you guys have definitely, defined that and did something most people would think, oh, wow, that's quite impossible. So I can't wait to dive more into your journey and success in story. So I want to start by talking about your college experience. So what's your major? Was it hard for you to decide what you want to do, what you want to study?
Yeah, so I went to college and got a degree in business administration with a concentration mostly in finance. And to be honest, it wasn't really that hard of a decision for me to make. And it just sort of, became clear in my mind that that's what I was going to do. And then I never really took any time to question it. Whether that was for the better or for the worse is, unknown. But once I decided, I sort of had an interest in the stock market and business in general when I was in high school. So I decided that was the way to go and never really looked back on it. It just seems like at the time, at least in high school, I sort of equated money to freedom. And I looked at that as a way of, generating a lot of it, whether that was, the right way to look at it. I'm not sure, but it wasn't much of a difficult decision for me at all. I just sort of set myself on that path and went through college all the way through college on that.
What's your favorite class while you were a student in college? If there's one.
Yeah. This is a few years back now. I'm trying to think. Well, actually, my favorite class was my entrepreneurship class, which I took my final year of college. And whether or not I knew it before going into that class or discovered it in there, but I just found that class so much more interesting, where we would go through and create actual business plans and do things from more of a standpoint of creating rather than just learning and memorizing.
I love that. You know what? This is something that I ask my own children and the students at my own school. I think the highest level of learning is actually to create, and not just like memorizing things, regurgitating information, but actually using what you have learned to create. So really interesting. So after you graduate and you actually had two different full-time jobs, and I want to unpack this a little bit. Was it hard for you? So if you are interested in becoming an entrepreneur from what you shared earlier, so why you didn't start a business right after, or was that a strategic decision to do some full-time job first and then start your own company? So can you share that with us?
Yeah, so when I graduated college, I graduated in 3 years, and all of my friends were going to spend the fourth year in college. So I'd actually planned to go back to college and do my MBA there at Binghamton, where I graduated originally. But then once I got the syllabus for it, a lot of the professors were the same. There was a whole lot of overlap between what I had done in my undergrad and what I was going to learn in the master's program. So at that point, I didn't see much value in doing that. So I pulled the plug on it at the last minute. And then sort of had to scramble a little bit while I decided what to do. So at that point, I decided it would be a good idea to go ahead and take a job just so I really figured out where to do it. So I did that for a little over a year, I guess, there, and then wound up making the move out to California, where again I just got into a stable situation where I could make the move and got a job out here. And just got the ball rolling. It wasn't necessarily too strategic at the time. It was just sort of what fell into place and what made it possible for me to get stable and get my feet on the ground.
Yeah, and then after that, what inspired you to start Wave Chat Media? First, tell us more about Wave Chat Media. I mentioned it briefly, but tell us more about it and what inspired you to leave that job. Full time, pretty stable, pretty secure, and what inspired you to leave that behind and to type into the unknown?
Yeah. So it's actually ChatWave Media, but really what it was at the time is I just spent a lot of time. I knew that I was going to get into entrepreneurship at some point. So even while I had the job, many months before I actually quit it, I was doing a lot of research, figuring out what I thought would be not only the best business to start now, but would be the best a few years into the future, and also where there would be a good value proposition to sell it. And I decided that chatbot marketing was very simple to start up, but there's a perceived difference there where it's something that seems very complex. So you can learn it relatively easily and then go out there and sell it to business owners as something that they would never want to try and do themselves. So it's relatively easy to make that value proposition. And then at the same time, chatbot marketing, especially on Facebook Messenger, is very effective when it comes down to sales, and especially now that email marketing basically gets all of the selling of your emails essentially gets filtered out of your email into the promotions field, and no one really clicks on that, rather than a business can send you a message on Facebook Messenger and then that goes right next to your friends and family. So you're getting a lot more eyes on it, a lot higher open rate. And I just thought it seemed like a really smart thing to do at the time. And it did turn out to be a good move. So I had the idea of what I wanted to do there. And then it basically was just a matter of time until I should have made more of an effort to start the company while I was still working. It would have been the safer move, but I've never really been somebody to dip my toes in the water. I sort of like to jump all in on something. So I went ahead and made that move. And to be honest, it really wasn't difficult at all. I was really excited about doing it because the one thing that I knew was that what I was doing at the time was not right. I didn't enjoy going in to work for somebody else every day. I didn't enjoy not being able to create something of my own. So it wasn't much of a difficult choice for me, no.
Oh, very interesting. I have quite a few questions related to what you just shared with us. So is it very common for people in your generation to start your own company? So what you do, is it really common among your peers and friends, or you are kind of a unicorn, so to speak?
I don't think it's something that's very common, no. So from my peers where I grew up, very few, if any, are in entrepreneurship. And then in college, one of my good friends is in entrepreneurship back in New York. After moving to California, it is a bit more of a popular thing out here where I live that people are into entrepreneurship. I think more so because people in entrepreneurship move here, because if you can go anywhere, why not live in San Diego? It's a
I
little more
know.
common out here. Yeah. So, I mean, I moved here while I was actually still working, but I think if I did have the freedom to go wherever, at least in the U.S., I would definitely recommend moving to San Diego. So it's a little more common out here, but in New York, it's definitely not as common. I see most people just go the traditional route of going into a job, whether it be after college or just directly out of high school.
Very interesting. I think that's kind of my experience after working with so many students. I was like, wow, in 2020, people are still so fixated on finding that 9 to 5 job. So it's nice to hear you say that. So what makes you different? Is it something that are your parents entrepreneurs, or it is something that you like? What is it in you that makes
Yeah.
you like the way you are? I don't want to work for others. I want to start my own thing. So what makes you different?
I think it's always, I've just sort of had a pretty idealistic vision of what I want out of my life, and I don't like, accepting anything less than that. So my parents aren't really entrepreneurs, although they're, very supportive of anything I choose to do. So they didn't really ever discourage me on doing it. They also knew that working in a normal job wasn't something that I enjoyed. So they definitely encouraged it when I decided to start a business. And really, it just comes down to, I guess, just deciding what I want and then going ahead and trying to take it, I think is what makes me different.
I love it, right? You know what you want and then follow up by taking action. So,
Right.
so your company is ChatWave Media, chatbots. And is this something that you actually learned while you were at school, or where did that knowledge come from? Or in other words, I'm curious, how has your 4-year college education prepared and not prepared you for this major big launch, your very first company?
Sure. I don't think I ever heard the word chatbot while in college. That being said, it was now a few years ago, and it's a technology that's sort of moving ahead. So none of that was from college, and I basically learned how to do all of that just from online resources and free online resources too, whether it be YouTube, Facebook groups. There's a lot of groups out there where you can just, if you are having trouble with certain concepts, you can type your message in there and somebody will give you an answer, somebody will help you out. So I didn't take any paid classes on that. I just went ahead and learned it on the internet, and
That's
it really
amazing.
isn't that difficult, really.
That's amazing. But I think to me, that means you are interested in the topic. And second, you have the ability to learn how to learn, right? You can figure things out. I think that is something, instead of teaching students specific knowledge, but actually we need to help people learn how to learn, how to figure out information. So do you mind sharing with us, where are some specific places that you actually learned this skill? Did you work with a coach, or to start a business, or you completely kind of figure out everything by yourself and with your friends?
Yeah, I think the ability to seek out information is probably one of the top skills that you can have right now, because just about the information for anything that you're going to want to do is out there on the internet somewhere. So it really just comes down to finding a reliable source for it, and then finding a source also that fits your own unique learning style. So for me, I would just go on YouTube and watch videos of it, and then I'm pretty good at figuring out what aspects of things I understand and what aspects I still need to learn. So I'll go and be able to look up the niche things that I still need to figure out. And, once you sift through enough information on there and are pretty good at being able to Google, search things on various platforms, all the information's there. It just comes down to finding it and then being able to learn from it.
Wow, that is so incredible. So for this ChatWave Media, is it just you are the founder or co-founder, or do you have a team work on this, or did you eventually later grow a team? Share more with us.
So I originally did it just myself, and then got along a little bit on that. And there were certain things that were a little bit more complicated from the technology standpoint than I wanted to get into myself. So I would just go ahead and hire private contractors or freelancers to tackle those things, and never actually hired any employees. And then now at this point, I do have another friend and partner that I'm working on it with, and he's going out there and working on sort of the sales aspect of it. And then I'm handling most of the development of it. And then again, once I get to a point where something's a little bit more complicated from a technological standpoint, then I'll go ahead and maybe hire a freelancer to tackle those individual details.
I love it. That's kind of my business model. I don't have any employee. I hire freelancers, contractors. Do you hire them overseas or in the United States?
Typically overseas. For this chatbots in particular, it's something that most of the things that I need to get done are easier to get done overseas, and the cost is just so much lower that it doesn't really make sense to go with somebody based in the US for me.
Wow, incredible. It reminds me of like so many conversations I had with my friends who are entrepreneur. I recently just interviewed Jeff J. Hunter. I don't know if you know him. And he is a very successful entrepreneur himself. And he runs a VA team. And so his team is now like almost 100 people plus probably, and doing like VA work for like entrepreneurs in the US. Very interesting, very interesting. Yeah, oh wow. Incredible,
yeah,
incredible.
With globalization too, I mean, you're finding people that speak perfect English have oftentimes even better skills than people based here and at a fraction of the cost. So from a scalability and leverage standpoint, it would be hard to make the argument against doing that.
And totally. I use VAs from the Philippines, and they are hardworking. They speak perfect English and very nice. And it reminds me again of another conversation. I recently interviewed Elaine Profield, and she is a Forbes contributor, and she writes a book. She wrote the book titled $1 million business. So I hope one day, I don't know if you are there yet, that's kind of my inspiration, one day becoming this $1 million business. And it is so incredible with technology, with internet, how many, what you said, impossible, healthy disrespect for the impossible. Yes, totally right. Like everything impossible is, I am possible. So I love that. I love that. Yeah. So,
yeah, and
go
I was going to
ahead.
say that the things that may have been impossible a few years back and seemed, totally unreasonable are now becoming very possible and almost practical.
Yeah. So here is my friend James. They launched the Facebook of math teaching and allows teachers and students to work and learn remotely. Yeah, totally right. Remote learning, I think the beauty is you can actually learn from people all over the globe. You can learn from the best. You don't have to be stuck with a university. You don't have to be stuck with a professor. You have the autonomy to choose, this person is really good at this. Why don't I take a class from this person instead of, yeah. So would you choose, kind of, this is my later question, but I want to ask now, kind of based on our conversation right now, would you, if you could have a conversation with the younger younger Dan, when you were still a college student, would you pursue your college degree differently? Or what would you do differently? Or you're not going to change anything?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I definitely would have started a business while in college, which didn't necessarily occur to me at the time. I don't know, for one reason or another, it just didn't. But and really, I would compel any college student that has an interest in entrepreneurship to go ahead and just start trying to do it. Pick something and start trying to sell it. And you're going to learn a lot from doing that. And a lot of it, you're going to learn what you're not good at, what you are good at. And then maybe you learn that it's not right for you at all, or maybe it takes off and you have success at it. But I don't really see any reason why you wouldn't start a business in college, especially now that there's so many businesses that you can start essentially for free. All you're going to be doing is developing your time. And there's, I don't think, a better time in your life when you're going to have access to networking resources of professors that may have expertise in what you need to know, resources of fellow students with free time on their hands that are going to take interest in what you need to know, and then just free time on your hands yourself. In college, quite honestly, I don't think you're probably working anywhere near 40 hours a week. At least I definitely wasn't.
That's right. Yeah. But it's interesting, right? You took those classes, entrepreneurship. I assume you also took some business classes. So those classes, did they inspire you or require you to actually go out and start? Or most students treat that as a checkbox?
So entrepreneurship class, that was not actually required. That was one that I decided to do myself. And most of the students in there were actually interested in entrepreneurship, but most of it, again, was from a conceptual standpoint. I know so basically the class was you'd work on creating a business plan and then checking all the boxes that you would go through to actually execute the plan. And then at the end of the class, they would have a pitch where I believe it was one or two of the teams would wind up getting a small amount of seed money to actually start the business. So ours wasn't one of the ones that wound up winning the process there, but a couple other teams did win. And I believe they actually went ahead and did start the businesses. I haven't really checked back to see what came of that, but again, that was still mostly from a conceptual standpoint for the majority.
Totally, that's why I have to, we believe the best education happens outside the classroom. You just have to apply, try this out in real life. That's the best way to validate your idea, right? Put it into the market. Yeah. So I want to also ask you, starting your own company from full-time jobs to starting your own thing, something that you don't really know that much about and only learn online. So what are some unique challenges that you had to overcome, and how did you overcome them?
I think probably the most difficult challenge, and something that I still am challenged with a lot, is just determining what you need to be doing at any given time. So with business, there's obviously a lot of things that need to get done and not necessarily a lot of time to do all of them. So prioritization, deciding what you need to be doing at what time, making sure you're focusing your energy on the things that are actually going to provide value, is probably one of the biggest challenges. And then I think something that I've usually been pretty good at, but even has been a challenge for me, is just confidence. It takes a lot of confidence to go put yourself out there, to take a leap, to approach a business owner to try and sell a product. It takes a lot of confidence to do that.
Yeah, it is so interesting. I agree. I think those are very important life skills. Almost every student comes to my program, they struggle with confidence, and like even myself, right? It is so interesting. I share this, and I don't know how many of you watching us live right now actually have children younger than 8. So based on research, it has shown that everything that we tell a kid prior to 8 years old, the kid just absorbs that as fact, capital F, fact. They take that in. So I think it's really interesting that we all kind of, we our life is just like outside in, like other people tell us how good you are, you're really good at this, you're good at that. But I think we need to spend more time to really go within to cultivate that inner strength, right? Like make the inner foundation more and more solid. Yeah. So when you're hiring people, and so where did you learn those skills? Like did you make any mistakes? Do you have any bad hires, or everyone you hired was like, A+ game?
Well, the way that I've done it with freelancers, I've had some that are better than others. I've had a few where the job just didn't get done, but typically I'm using, online marketplaces that have sort of some safeguards in effect for that. So I don't really ever get into too much trouble with it, again, because most of them are not necessarily long-term commitments, and most of the things that I'm getting done are pretty niche. Otherwise I would do it myself. So typically they're small jobs that I haven't really ever gotten myself into too much trouble on that, and also the hiring process is mostly just checkbox rather than really going through and making sure somebody's going to be a long-term fit.
Yeah, interesting. I asked this because I definitely had bad hires. I do all the hiring myself. And what I learned was that if you are only looking at credentials, like it's only like 40% of the big picture. You also have to look at this person's communication skills, collaboration skills, all those really important soft skills. And that is a big learning curve for me. I didn't realize that. Yeah.
Definitely. That's definitely tough to find, someone that's going to fit within an organization too. I mean, not something I've necessarily dealt with myself so much, but I have seen bad hires play out, and I've seen people that, have the credentials, have the check boxes marked, and then you wonder, how they even got that. So there is a lot more to it than just the credentials these days, I think.
Totally. So like besides ChatWave Media, you share with me that you joined another group of friends, and you guys are working on an app that is yet to be released, but super excited. So can you tell us more about this app and what inspired them to develop this app? What problem is this app solving?
Yeah, so Challenge Time is an app that I've came on and I'm working on as Chief Marketing Officer, and I joined Austin and Randon, who are the CEO and COO, and luckily I was able to find them through an online entrepreneurship group that Yes Theory sort of started and curates, which is a YouTube channel based on essentially just, going out there and doing the things that people might do as impossible, doing the things that are going to have impactful experiences on not only yourself, but society in general. So the app is really basically trying to cultivate that general mindset. And the premise is that right now on typical social media platforms, you have maybe 1% of people on the platforms that are actually creators, and then 99% of everyone else is just sort of scrolling through their phones and looking at these people having the experiences while not really having them themselves. So challenge time is designed to challenge people to get outside of their comfort zone and take action in real life through competitions that offer financial incentives.
Wow, can you give us some examples of some challenges? I don't know if do you guys already have some beta users for this app? If not, can you give us some like examples so it doesn't feel so abstract?
Yeah,
I want
sure.
to hear more challenges.
So the beauty of it is that it really could be challenges in anything, and it's really only limited to the challenges that people can conceptualize and create. So the goal of it is to be very broad and essentially have a challenge for every interest that somebody might be interested in. So it could be something fitness related, where a challenge could be perhaps sponsored by Nike, and then it could be, whoever is able to go out there and run the furthest distance in a half an hour wins the challenge. Or it could be a photography challenge, where whoever is able to go out and capture the best photo of the ocean wins that challenge. Or it could be something along the lines of writing. So it could even be, the best original poem wins this challenge. And then the beauty of it is it's all voted on by other people on the app. So everything is community-based, community-generated, and efficiently judged by the young community within the app.
Wow, interesting. So is this app only for the young people, or like that's your ideal demographic, or it's kind of generic for everyone?
So it's really for everybody. Any social media user that feels glued to their screen and feels they aren't taking enough action to benefit their own lives, whereas, just they're sort of out there consuming content. It's for everybody to get out there and actually create on their own, do things out in the real world, and give an actual structure, motivation, and incentive to go out there and do the things that you might think about doing, but not actually ever go out and do. So just sort of a way for anybody to follow their passion. And then obviously the younger generation tends to be frequent adopters and app users, but we're actually targeting people that are about 18 to 29 because that's a segment of people that are able to actually take full advantage and get the financial incentives that we're offering on the platform.
Totally, and that's my demographic as well. That's my target audience. So I will be the very first person to check out this app. So when do you think this will be available for the general public to download and play with?
So we're working on getting the beta version out there pretty soon here, hopefully end of this month, maybe bleeding into October a little bit. And I'll definitely make sure that we get you access to the beta version to get on there and check it out and get some feedback. And then from there, it's going to come down to just making sure that everything's working properly, make sure we have everything exactly like we want it, and then go ahead and launch. We're looking towards the end of this year, early 2021 for general public.
Congratulations. And you shared with me before we went live that you already got some people on board with the app, right? Some influencers. That's great.
Yeah, definitely. It's something that just about everybody that we present the idea to feels very strongly about it, feels it's going to be something that's going to allow them to, if they have an audience, to really fully engage their audience to a degree they're not able to do. And their audience can then obviously have a much deeper interaction with them, because instead of consuming the content, they're contributing to the content, and they're really putting themselves right in the same world as athletes or influencers or whoever's running the challenges.
Did you guys raise the capital on your own, or just like everything out of your own pocket to develop this app?
So the CEO was able to secure the funding for it, and that's more of his story, I guess, on how he was able to do that. But he's providing the vast majority of the funding, and I'm lucky to have gotten into a point where I primarily am able to lend my expertise and don't have to have a huge financial commitment on my end.
Oh, wow, that's exciting. So this is kind of your second major entrepreneurial in Denver. So for the second one, what are some? Was it easier for you to kind of embark on this journey, and or are there certain additional challenges from this app that you were not encountering for the first one, running your own company, ChatWave Media?
Sure. Yeah. Again, it comes down to there's a lot of challenges in everything, but at this point, I've sort of gotten to a point where I'm good at seeking out the solution for challenges, whether it be on the internet or just thinking about it and solving problems on my own. So there's still challenges that are encountered every day, every step of the way. But at this point, I've become pretty efficient at going ahead and finding the information for it and solving challenges. So I do find that things get a little bit easier, but then again, this is a much higher degree of complexity than what I've been doing before. So marketing for an app is something that's totally new for me. So I have to seek out a lot more information, put a lot more intricate thought and detail into it. There's a lot of things I didn't necessarily even know existed, like app store optimization, that I now have to go out and learn and figure out, the best way to tackle. So it's definitely much more complex, but that's sort of what makes it interesting to me as well.
Totally, I can so resonate. Before I resigned from my professor position, I was teaching, PR, public relations, and social media classes. But I actually didn't really understand how to run social media. And now I'm actually running my company, running my own social media. I was like, oh my God, this is actually what is social media supposed to be, right? So like, if you can reflect on the knowledge you learned from your classes, do you feel like the things that, even if you had a business idea back then, do you feel like the knowledge you learned in the classroom could actually help you, or there is actually a gap between what you learn and what you actually need to learn in real life, on the condition that, assuming that you already have a business back then?
Yeah, there's definitely a major gap between the things that you would learn in the classroom and the things that you would need to use for entrepreneurship. I think in the classroom, it mostly comes down to, they'll give you a book and they'll say all the answers are in here. Whereas in real life, your answers could be really anywhere. So it's not anywhere near as linear as the classroom. The classroom focused a lot more on memorization. That being said, it did, I think, probably provide a pretty good foundation on learning how the world works, learning how businesses in general function. But past that, I think most of the actual skills that you need in business are probably not going to be picked up through the normal channels of college education.
Totally right. Preparing for an exam. So speaking of which, I want to ask you, what do you think are some really important hard skills and soft skills that you pick up along the way that really help you get to where you are today?
So for hard skills, to be honest, I'm not so sure hard skills necessarily are that important when it comes down to running a business at a high level. I think that's where the soft skills come more into play. Obviously, it helps to be able to go ahead and get in there and do things yourself, whether it be on Microsoft Excel or just, working a computer very well, I guess would be considered a hard skill. But other than that, I think the soft skills are really where you're going to be able to make most of the impact. And so things like people skills, problem solving skills, ability to find the answer to certain things, ability to learn in general, those are the skills that I think are the most important.
I love that. So do you think today's college students are actually given enough opportunities to practice and to cultivate those really important soft skills that you just mentioned?
I don't think so. No, I think, my soft skills obviously did develop quite a bit throughout my time at college, but that is also a time in your life, when you're 18 through 21, 22, where you're maturing a lot in general. And I think making a lot of, soft skill advancements in general. So I'm not sure how much of that could actually be attributable to college, but a lot of the things that you focus on that you may even do in college and get a little bit of experience here and there are not a priority at all. So public speaking or presenting, while you do it frequently in college, there's not really a whole lot of, analysis on that, or not really a whole lot of here's how to do it. It's more so just, do it. So you make a little bit of progress on that, but I'm not so sure that you would necessarily be making that much progress in comparison to the amount of price you're paying for it.
I agree. I'm just thinking about all those. You took a few public speaking classes, persuasive presentation, informative presentation, but how many skills you can really carry with you on a daily basis. So yeah, so I know you are not an educator, but I just want to throw this question at you. You're so good at just responding. So if you were an educator, right, and if someone asks you, hey, design a curriculum for us, because we all know the current education model is pretty broken. So what do you think are some like courses or specific projects you will give students to actually help them develop those important soft skills? I'm curious to hear your answer.
Yeah, for starters, I think that just a focus on actually doing and creating would be much higher for me. I would make a really strong emphasis on students actually going out and starting a business. Obviously, the internship process is where most students are going to do this, and it might be a little bit unfair for me to generalize because colleges at the end of the day are not preparing people for entrepreneurship, and that's not their intention. At the end of the day, it is largely, to get people placed in stable jobs so that their placement rates are the highest. So a lot of what the colleges aren't doing aren't necessarily geared towards what I'm trying to do, but I think just an emphasis on doing would be much higher in my book than an emphasis on memorizing. An emphasis on, classes just on things like, seeking out information would be, I think, very important, especially now when we're in the age where everyone has a cell phone in their pocket. Being able to maximize the usage of that is so incredibly important. And that's something that isn't really done in college at all, because college is just giving you, a few sources where all your information is going to be. And it's so linear, where in the real world, it's not linear at all.
I love that. Totally. I still remember when I was teaching social media marketing classes. So the first thing is do some research and create a marketing plan, right? Step 1, step 2, step 3. But like in real life, they're like, no, it's not like you do this. After that, this will happen. Oh, absolutely not. Reminds me of last year, Adobe, they had a big study that came out, and they analyzed 2 million job postings and also 2 million resumes. And they discovered, wow, like most companies are looking for 5 important soft skills, but almost 70% of educators agree that our students are not developing those important soft skills. I think they covered creativity, communication, problem solving, collaboration, and some others. So yeah, I agree. Yeah. So we have lots of parents joining us live, and I want to ask you, like you mentioned earlier that your parents are really supportive of you. So was it hard for you to tell them, hey, I'm leaving my full-time job, I'm starting my own company? How did they respond to that?
They responded primarily positively. I've always been a pretty independent person, and typically wound up making decisions that, winded up with positive outcomes. My parents would typically give me a large amount of freedom. And I think they were pretty good at understanding that they didn't have the full context of, what I wanted to do with my life. So when I would make a decision, they usually would go ahead and get behind it. I understand that's not the same for everybody else. So it could be a bit of a different situation, but it wasn't difficult for me at all. They knew that what I was doing wasn't necessarily what I wanted to be doing. And they also knew that, if I didn't work out having success in entrepreneurship, it's always something where I can just go ahead and reverse and get a job again. Nothing's irreversible. So I didn't have any problem with that. They were very supportive with it.
Yeah, and that's amazing. Congratulations. I know like not every parent is as liberal, as open as your own parents. So I think that's very lucky. And I also agree, if you want to start a business, I think younger, the better, right? You don't have children to take care of. And so that's great. But how about, what, like from your perspective, most people join us live are educators, non-traditional educators like myself, entrepreneurs and parents. So can you give those people some advice from your perspective as a emerging professional, as a startup founder, as a recent college grad, in terms of, how can parents or educators support their own children to become the best version of themselves? And from your perspective, something that you wish more parents understood, you wish more parents actually practice this, you wish more parents actually supported their children this way. So can you share a few with us?
Yeah, so I think probably the best thing that I would do is, and it's usually pretty easy to see, I think, when someone's interested in what they're doing or when someone's actually enjoying what they're doing. So I would probably try to give children as many experiences as possible in actually doing things, and then see which ones they actually have a proclivity towards, see which ones they're actually really enjoying, enthusiastic about, and then push them more in that direction, rather than, I think a lot of parents sort of get caught up putting their children on a track that they think is correct, and then whether or not the children are really, going towards that track themselves, keep sort of pushing them down that. So, in that case, I would just really be intuitive and pay a lot of attention towards what the children actually are enjoying, what they're getting drawn towards, and then encourage them to go more in that direction and help them go in that direction rather than just choosing a direction.
Yeah, totally. I agree. I also want to follow up on this, right? Like, I think most parents are, as what you mentioned, you have to do this, go to school, this, college, and then find a job, right? So which one do you think is more important, experience versus degree? Which one do you think is more important?
Definitely experience. There's obviously going to be a lot of things where you're going to absolutely need a degree to get done. And if that's something that you want to do, then that's definitely the route to go. But I think a lot of people jump into the path on getting a degree without really having any experience in it. They'll maybe do a few Google, they'll do a little research and decide on a degree for, let's say chemical engineering after they enjoyed their chemistry class. But, at the end of the day, once you get into that, it's maybe not the same thing at all. But once you get 3-4 years into college on that path, then you start to realize it might not be what you enjoy. You're sort of, from a time and financial standpoint, a little bit too far in to go back. So a lot of people wind up, I think, going down the path that they probably don't even want to go down without really realizing they're doing it to themselves. And then sooner or later, you're locked into a situation where you're not doing what you want, but it seems like you've already put in so much resources that it wouldn't make sense to change. So I would definitely focus on getting experience in things before making the full commitment to actually, pursue them full time.
Oh, it's like, oh my gosh, you nailed it. That's like the situation of many students that I work with. First of all, they have no idea what they want to do. And second of all, by the time they actually discover what they want to do, they are way too invested. As you mentioned, time-wise, especially financially, it's too late for them. And this is also my personal experience. After I got a master, after I got a PhD, I was like, wow, is this really what I need to do? I'm not really into this, but it's way too late for me to change. And so I agree. So what do you think is a way for people actually to discover earlier what they want to do? Kind of through internship? Is that like what you think?
Yeah, I'm not so sure why the internship process is something that, you're supposed to do the second and third year of college. To me, that seems like something that would make a lot more sense to move up in the timeline and maybe even do before college. Obviously, you're not going to have as much of the skills to actually contribute towards the company. But if you could even get into a company as, a personal assistant type intern a lot earlier on in the game, and, at least get in the environment, see what people around you are doing, see what the general work culture is like, see if, what the overall goals of the company are, something that are appealing to you. The sooner you can get an actual experience and an actual point of reference on things, the sooner you're going to be able to determine what's correct, what's not. So I'm not even so sure that I would recommend rushing directly into college after high school, because I think after high school, you barely know how the world works. You barely know, quite frankly, you really don't know much of anything in high school in the grand scheme of things. And that's when you're forced to make the most important decision of your life. And oftentimes a decision that winds up with leaving you $50,000 in debt and, in sort of an irreversible track in life. So I think there needs to be a lot higher emphasis on getting actual real world experience before making these important decisions.
Oh my God, yes. I'm such an advocate of, taking gap year and traveling, being outside of your comfort zone, speaking of challenges. That's how actually you discover who you are, understand your core value. I think an ideal life is actually our career is in alignment with who we are, our core values. Most people don't even know who they are. They just take a career because, they look at some ranking and look at the salary, like, okay, this is my career. No wonder so many people are just like, not happy. Yeah. So I so agree. Great point. So Craig had a good point, right? Soft skills are very important. And also you need the right skills. I agree. I think we need both soft skills and hard skills. But based on my experience and based on what I learned from reading all the books, is actually besides like on an equal condition, everyone have those hard technical skills, but those people who have the additional soft skills, they will travel far in life. And actually, I read this book talking about emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is actually 2 times more predictive of a person's long-term success than IQ. So when I read that, I was like, wow, really, really interesting. I agree, both are important. Yeah. Great. So we are just wrapping up here, and I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation. As you can tell, I'm pretty excited. Yep. So what are some big goals for you, Dan? So where do you see yourself? Now you have your hands are on 2 companies. And so where do you see yourself or your company in 5 years?
Well, 5 years from now, that's hard to really say, because things are changing so quickly, making progress on a lot of things, more than I would have thought, more than I could have hoped. So ChatWave Media is really something I'm mostly focused on as a cash flow business right now. And I think Challenge Time is going to have a really strong future. That's where I think I'll probably be spending most of my time for the next couple of years. We'll see exactly where that pans out. I'm looking forward to that a lot, and I'm very confident about where that's going to go. So hoping for the best there. And I think that's mostly where I'll be spending a large majority of my time making impact there. And then depending on how that works out, I'll probably continue to work on, businesses for cash flow and maybe trying to grow just a marketing agency of my own as well.
I just love your story. I just love how, you're much younger than me, how young people are just like, you can just leverage what is available through the internet and through social media and create, design your life, not just like, looking for a job. I love this. And so Craig has a question. So I'm actually using StreamYard. I can send you a link. And through StreamYard, I'm actually live on 7 different places on LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Twitch. I'm also live on my website, and I hope it actually worked. I'm going to check later. Yeah, so I have been sharing your social media handles, but do share with us again, Dan, where can people learn more about you and from you? And if your company has a website, also share with us.
Sure. Yeah. So my LinkedIn there on the bottom, linkedin.com, just Daniel N. Manning, or search Dan Manning on LinkedIn is where you can connect with me there. And I'm always, just as you'd reached out there, I'm always happy to connect with people on there and wind up actually getting some valuable connections for people that just reach out right on LinkedIn. And then where I post most of my personal things and sometimes some business is a little bit of a typo there, but at Dan.Manning on Instagram, DAN.MANNING.
Sorry.
No problem at all. I think just a small typo. Everyone will figure it out. But that's where I do mostly personal updates. You can get a glimpse into more of what I'm able to do with the life that I've created, I guess, rather than how to do it. But I'm always happy to reach out to anybody that wants a little bit more information on what I'm up to and have a conversation too, and even give advice. There you go. Perfect. So there it is right there to load. That's perfect. Thanks for fixing that. And then my website is chatwavemedia.com. And that's where you can just essentially see what I'm doing on there. And then Challenge Time is, we do have a temporary website, but that's going to mostly be an app-based platform that I'm going to go ahead and be pushing out through my personal social medias in the future here once we have more of a product that's actually downloadable to each individual user.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dan. And I love the conversation and everyone enjoyed it. So thank you so much for your time. And thank you so much, everyone joining us live from all over the globe. And I hope to see you guys again next Friday, same time, same location. We actually have a high schooler and who is also a first-generation immigrant to the US. And she is going to share her journey to become an entrepreneur. She actually launched her own business when she was like 13 years old. So I'm really excited, Zofia, to have her on the show to share her journey and how she's already making an impact and difference in the world. So thank you so much again, Dan. And thank you so much again, everyone. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye.